Dear students, welcome to the online classes of Animal Biotechnology. And today I will start section B. And in section B, I will discuss about the biosafety regulation. So in this section, first I will discuss about the biohazards and primary containment and biosafety levels of different laboratories. Then I will discuss about the GMOs and LMOs, that is genetically modified organism and living modified organism, and their effect on environment and public health. And then I will discuss about the biosafety issue of these GMOs and LMOs. And now first, biohazardous waste. Here in this figure you can see the symbol of biohazardous material. Wherever you see this symbol, it means that contain some infectious or biohazardous material. Maybe you have seen this symbol outside of our cell and molecular biology lab. So, what is biohazardous waste? So, it is the any waste which is generated during the diagnosis, treatment, or immunization of human beings or animals, or it is the waste which is produced during the research activities pertaining in the production or testing of biologicals. And biomedical waste management has recently emerged as an issue of major concern, not only for hospitals but also for our environment. Biomedical waste generated from healthcare units depend upon number of factors such as waste management method, type of healthcare unit, etc. And biohazardous waste includes the waste from contaminated biological material, that is infectious disease, or the blood from the infected person, or it may be the sharp waste such as needle, blade, glass pipette, and pipette tips, and other waste that can cause injury during the handling. Now the sources of biomedical waste or biohazardous waste. So major source of biohazardous waste are hospitals, healthcare centers, medical college and research centers. And minor sources of biomedical waste are clinics, animal houses, blood donation camps and vaccination centers. Now containment. What is containment? Containment is the safe methods for managing infectious material to reduce or eliminate exposure of laboratory workers, other persons, and the outside environment to potentially hazardous agents. So, containments are safe method for the protection of the person who is working in infectious environment in infectious lab, or it is important to protect our environment also. So primary containment is the first container or first thing which is in direct contact with biohazardous material, as well as protection of personal and immediate laboratory environment from exposure to infectious agents. So primary containment require using proper storage containers, good microbiological techniques, and use of appropriate safety equipment like gloves or safety biosafety cabinets like laminar hood. So the primary containment is accomplished by good microbiological technique and appropriate safety equipment like biosafety cabinets, that is laminar hood. And there is secondary containment also, that is the protection of external environment from the exposure of infectious materials from the any infectious laboratory. So if any infectious agent is leaked out from the uh, any infectious laboratory, it can cause major health threat. So you may heard about the leakage of this coronavirus from China from a lab. So it is a kind of uh, failure of secondary containment. Now the biosafety cabinets, as I discussed about the primary containment, it should have some specific biosafety units, and the specific biosafety unit in any laboratory is the laminar hood. So laminar hood is made up of actually some specific type of filter that is called HEPA filter, that is high efficiency particulate air filter, and it allow only purified air inside the laminar airflow, and it can retain all the contaminants in this filter. So here you can see the primary containment in low risk lab. So here is no specific laminar hood. This type of laminar hood you can find in our cell and molecular biology lab also. So this horizontal laminar fluid consists of A is the front opening, B is the supply grill, C is the HEPA filter here, C this is the HEPA filter, D is the supply plenum, and E is the blower. So here the air can blow in this way, and it is filtered from the HEPA filter, and only purified air comes in this way, and the continuous airflow is necessary to avoid any contamination inside the laminar flow. Now the primary containment in high risk lab, like if you are working in highly infectious disease, so you cannot work on the simple microscope. So for that you need a modified containment cabinet or class 1 biosafety cabinet. So here you can see the class 1 biosafety cabinet, and here you can see the arm holes. So you can only insert your arms inside this laminar flow. And B is the Lennox hinged doors. So these doors are tightly closed. And C is the exhaust charcoal filter. Here, this is these are the HEPA filter, and E is the filter housing. So here you can see a kind of class 1 biosafety cabinet. Here, this scientist is working with this cabinet, and he is inserting only his hands inside the cabinet. So by this classification of laboratory also depends on the containments. So they are divided into 4 level: biosafety level 1 to biosafety level 4, that is called BSL level 1, BSL level 2, BSL level 3, and BSL level 4. So if you are working in low containment or low risk microbes, you can work in the biosafety level 1. So CDC and NIH given some guidelines for the biosafety. So CDC is Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and NIH is the National Institute of Health in USA. So they have given some guidelines for the biosafety, and these guidelines are accepted internationally. And here you can see their manual for biosafety and microbiological and biomedical laboratories. So according to the biosafety uh, there are 3 biosafety components. First is practice and procedure. It can be standard and special. Second is safety equipments. Safety equipments should also be standard, and they should have some special safety equipments. And the facilities like design and construction of specific labs and their function. So based on the containment or based on the risk, the laboratory can be divided into 4 levels. So first is the biosafety level 1 or BSL1 lab. So in BSL1 we work with the microorganisms not known to consistently cause any disease in healthy adult human. Like you can work with any bacteria or non-pathogenic bacteria in the BSL1 lab. And basic level of containment in that lab is standard microbiology practices, no special primary or secondary barrier recommended, and no specific practice is required. And the design of that lab is like this. Access control means only Selected people are allowed to enter this lab. There should be sink in the lab. Bench top should be there, and adequate illumination means that there should be proper lighting. So here you can see the BSL1 lab, and our cell and molecular biology lab is a kind of BSL1 lab. And here you can see the door, you can see the biohazardous symbol here. Only selected people can enter inside the lab. You can see the dustbin for biohazardous material here. You can see the laminar hood also, and you can see the sink. So it is a kind of BSL1 lab. Now BSL2 lab. Uh, in BSL2, we work with moderate risk microorganisms agent like hepatitis B or HIV or Salmonella. The basic level of containment is standard microbiological practice. So the person who is trained in microbiology, he can only enter inside this lab. There should be secondary barrier like hand washing, sink, segregated waste, and various biosafety cabinets are present in this lab. And special type of practice we can do inside the BSL2 lab like immunization program, access control. So only a selected person can enter in the lab also. So if you will we will discuss about the design of this lab. The door should be lockable, sink with hand-free operation. So sink should be automatic, means tap should be automatic. Uh, Impressive bench top resistant to moderate heat. Surface should be easily cleaned, and eye wash should also available, and biosafety cabinets installed properly, and they should install always away from the door. Now BSL3 lab. If you will discuss about BSL3 lab, in this lab scientists work with indigenous or exotic agents with potential for respiratory transmission. So in this type of lab, we can work with the some pathogen who are uh, potential respiratory, which can transmit through the respiratory tract. So basic containment are standard microbiological practices. Secondary barrier, that is BSC required, directional airflow is also required, and anti-room entry. Special practice, that is restricted access, solid front lab coat, and autoclave required. So you cannot enter this type of lab without autoclaving or without any wearing the personal protection kit. So if you want to enter this type lab, you should have access, you should have special license, and here you can see the law code, and once you get the license you will know the code and you can open this door. Design, if I will discuss about the design. So here again restricted access, lockable doors, emergency opening is also there. If there is some mishappening, in that case you can exit from the emergency doors. So hands-free sink near door is necessary. Surface resistance to chemical, all the surface should be resistant to chemical. Monolithic floor, monolithic means without gaps. You can see there is no gap in the floor. And decontamination method should also available in BSL3. Now finally BSL4 lab. So in this lab we work with the dangerous and exotic agents that poses high individual risk of life-threatening disease like Ebola or coronavirus. If you want to work with these deadly organisms, you have to work only in BSL4 labs. Uh, So the basic level of containment, again standard microbiological practice. Secondary barrier should present here like BSCs, uh, PPE. So I talked about the PPE is compulsory to enter this lab. So personal protection kit is required. Special practice also required. That is isolated restricted access facility. The room should be sealed. Now types, class 3 biosafety cabinets are required in this type of lab, and personal protective suits or personal protective kit are required to enter in this type of labs. If I will discuss about the design of the lab, there should be isolated facility, and the building should be separate. It should be separate from the uh, population actually. And daily inspection and of containment is required. Restricted access. There should be a changing room and shower is also necessary. So if you want to enter in this type of lab, you have to take a shower, and you have to change all the clothes before entering this room. And there is double door autoclave is also present, and all rooms are penetration and sealed. So there is no hole or any type of leakage is present in this type of lab. Further, dedicated non-recirculation ventilation is necessary. HEPA filter supply in whole lab. Previously, we have seen that in the laminar flow we have HEPA filter, but to design this type of lab, there should be HEPA filter compulsory for this entire region. And occupants should always wear PPE kit. Here you can see the scientists who are working in this lab, they are wearing this PPE, personal protection kit. Now in this table I have summarized the BSL1 to BSL4 labs. So here I have described the biosafety levels, and here the description. So if in biosafety level 1 there is no containment or very low containment is required, you can work with defined microorganism like non-disease causing organisms. In biosafety level 2 labs, containment is required. Moderate risk, you can work with moderate risk of microorganism. In biosafety level 3 labs, high level of containment required, and particularly you work with aerosol transmission, the microbes which are transmitted by the aerosol transmission, and here serious and potentially lethal disease causing organism can be studied. And for biosafety level 4, maximum containment is required. Here we work with exotic high risk agents. So here if you will see the example, you can work with E. coli in BSL1 lab. In BSL2 lab you can work with influenza and HIV. In BSL3 you can work with tuberculosis, and in BSL4 we can work with coronavirus or Ebola virus. Already I have talked about the pathogen type, non-pathogenic here in BSL1. In BSL2 you can work with some moderate pathogen. In BSL3 we can work with the pathogen which are transmitted through the aerosol, and in BSL4 we can work with dangerous and exotic agents. For entry in BSL1 and BSL2 there is no need of autoclave, but if you want to enter the BSL3 or BSL4 lab, you have to wear autoclaved PPE kit. So that's all about the biosafety level laboratories. Now I will discuss about the genetically modified organism or GMOs and their effect on our environment or on our health, and then I will discuss about the biosafety issue of GMOs. So as you know, GMOs are the genetically modified organism in which any foreign gene can be introduced in any plant or any animal system. Here I have given an example of Bt cotton. In this you can see the insecticide gene from the bacteria is cloned in the vector and it is introduced in the cotton plant, and it is selected for the insecticidal cell, and once it is selected you can grow or propagate the plant from this tissue culture, and all the cells of this plant can produce the insecticide toxin. So once insects will come to eat, it can die because this plant is producing the toxin, that is insecticidal property. So here this plant can be act as a living modified organism. So what is living modified organism? They are living organisms that possess a new combination of genetic material obtained through the use of modern biotechnology. They are a subset of GMOs. So they may be the genetically modified seeds, cuttings, tissue cultures, etc. So what are the problem with GMOs, or what are the issue with GMOs? So first issue due to the antibiotic resistance gene. As you know, the antibiotic resistance gene are used as a selectable marker for plant transformation. The use of these marker gene has led to the suspicion that these genes might be transferred to environment and result in creation of antibiotic resistant human pathogen. So if you are using this antibiotic resistant genes, somehow they can be transferred to other organism also, and it can lead the antibiotic resistance. Second is issue of food safety. So by the year of 2013, 27 countries allowed this uh, grow grow of genetically modified crops. But there are no scientific report till date that proven that GM food may be toxic or unhealthy. But this issue has raised by some environmentalists. Why environmentalists have raised this issue? Because of this horizontal gene transfer. Actually, what happened in horizontal gene transfer? The genetic material from one organism to another organism is transferred. Like in 2001, in a study, evidence was provided that genetically modified genes from uh, GM maize or genetically modified maize have been transferred to non-genetically modified maize by the cross pollination, and thus they contaminated the wild type of the maize also. Further, there is a fear of development of superbug, means multiple antibiotic resistant microbes can also develop, and and there is a fear of environmental hazard. So environmental hazard means there is issue of super wheat due to herbicide resistance. So generally weeds are actually they cause significant yield loss, and one of the main concern associated with the cultivation of transgenic crop in open land is that either selection marker such as antibiotic or herbicide resistant gene, or genes which mark transgenic plant resistant to abiotic and biotic stress can escape to closely growing weeds. And weeds can acquire improved fitness and become more resistant, which might accentuate the characteristic of the weedings. So thus the super weed can be developed by the horizontal gene transfer. So that is big issue. And finally the issue of the biodiversity. So as you know, the BT corn or BT cotton roots are reported to leak BT toxin in soil, where it binds to some soil components and become resistant to degradation and more stable without losing its ability to kill insect larvae. So this is the big issue. So high concentration of such toxin in soil for longer time would adversely affect the soil microflora and fauna, which might lead to decrease the genetic diversity in that environment. So there is a need of biosafety guideline to overcome these issues with GMOs and LMOs. So in next lecture I will discuss about the biosafety guideline of Government of India. So that's all about today's lecture. If you have any query, you can write me on my WhatsApp number. Till then, please stay at home and stay safe. Thank you.